Hello, good morning, and welcome to Bill Riccardi's Weekly Patreon update. I, of course, am Bill Riccardi, a creator and purveyor of fantasy novels. What do we have in store this week? Well, entering the late stages of the first beta for A Falconer's Guide to Dying, and that's been exciting. I'm going to tell you a little bit about some of the drop-ins that have been suggested, and the reason why this might be the biggest Panos book ever created. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit about what's coming up next. What's next for Bill, and the book that will be started just before Christmas, but likely won't come out until late February or early March. So let's start at the start. Beta is going quite well. We are through kind of the first read, and by this Saturday, the two primary beta readers are going to be through the revisions that I've created. So that's the hope. Knock on wood. The timing of it couldn't really be better because open beta then starts on the 15th. And that goes until the 30th, which is why we had to push kind of our dates back a little bit. We wanted to get a nice long open beta for the 30 some odd readers who signed up between Patreon and the mailing list. So that's the good news. The better news is that this is looking to be possibly the largest of Panos books that I've created. Somewhere maybe in the realm of 110 to 115k, depending on if the drop-ins stay, if everything is suggested ads, and that wouldn't be too unusual because for my writing style, I tend to be rather minimalist. I skip certain scenes by default if I don't think that they are going to necessarily have enough of an impact. But then people say, wait, what happened in between X and Y? My 1 or 2 line explanations are not good enough. So I have to go back and add scenes. So unlike many other writers, I don't get a lot of cuts when we go into beta. I get a lot of requests for drop-ins. So that's actually good news. It means I'm not working backward at all, which is nice. So we'll see. We will see how that goes. But yep, closed beta coming to a close in approximately 1 week. Next time I'm talking to you, it's going to be right towards the tail end of closed beta, and then we enter the open beta period, and chaos happens. I'll tell you a little bit more about the format and what kind of software we'll be using and what have you. As soon as we get there, I've got 2 choices. I'm just narrowing it down as we speak. So, what is happening as far as the additional scenes and what have you? A lot of people are requesting some more information about the characters, and then my beta readers, specifically in this book, said that you should have some highlights of individual characters. And that's what I'm working on right now, is the highlight section of kind of where did these folks come from, because we don't see their history, we don't see their youth, we don't see kind of the formative events that created these characters in the first book. Now, I've always had these in mind. I've always had their histories written out. I didn't think I was going to be exposing people to them until kind of a Chronicles type thing, almost like what Dragonlance did, featuring entire swathes of people's youth and their formative years. But as it turns out, people want to hear more about it right now, and so that's going to be included in the second book, in A Falconer's Guide to Dying, and that is what I'm working on as we speak. So what's next? Well, after this, it's a huge shift in momentum because we're talking about finishing book 3. Now this is not necessarily a trilogy. Remember, the Ihy Saga continues, but it is the end of a big arc. I move into the Ihy Saga's 3rd book. After Rhythm and Cadence comes something, and the title is appropriately named. Let's just put it that way. And this 3rd book of the Ihy Saga is going to be all about winding up Lucas's initial arc. This first exposure that we have to this new world, in such a way that we can continue it in many different directions with many different characters. So that's the good news, right? Is we're going to have some variety after this. The bad news is it's a really hard write. The music, as you know, it's all very deeply entwined with music. The music is all very significant to me, and therefore it makes some deep emotional connections that make possibly the writing more difficult. But that's okay. I'm up for this challenge, and the urban fantasy stuff tends to get written faster anyway. If you remember my videos from when I was doing them, you'll know that the urban fantasy stuff comes out about 30% faster than the fantasy stuff, because I don't have to deal with a lot of backstory of another world. I don't have to deal with a lot of continuity of a world that is basically a giant ticking clock. A lot of the history of the Ihy Saga is the history of the world as we know it, so that's great. I can concentrate on the present and on what's going on, and that's the other thing. I can weave present events. I can weave the modern world into the Ihy Saga, making it a little bit easier. Excuse me, a little bit easier. So there you go. That is what's happening next, and I've already started. I mean, the outline is done. The song selection is nearly done. Almost everything is done as far as the outlining of that is concerned. So it could be a fairly quick write. I'm hoping for a January kind of first draft, and then by the end of February, running it all the way through and handing it over to beta readers right there in February. So quick turnaround between a December release and a possible late February, early March release. But I need to get more books out there. That's the long and short of it. Now, when the third book of the Ihy Saga does come out, it's possible that we're going to have a change in the sales model for the Ihy Saga. You might remember, as soon as I finished the first trilogy of Panos, the first book in the Panos universe became free. I need to consider whether or not that's the best move for the Ihy Saga. If so, it's going to see a broad release, free, as kind of a demonstration of my craft. So, we'll see how that goes. That's about it, folks. If anyone has any questions, of course, pop them over to me. Until then, it's frigid here in Belfast, but at least it's sunny. And the ciders downstairs are brewing. So we might have some fresh cider by the time I talk to you next week. Everyone stay safe out there, and have a great weekend. Bye-bye.